What's going on, guys? So I know you're waiting for my first impressions and unboxing of the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, but unfortunately, Nothing has not fulfilled my order, and I put my order in since March 11th, and I haven't heard anything since. I understand from like Nothing culture perspective, they're trying to be like, we don't do nothing, but when it comes to like taking people's money, you probably should have actual customer service that responds to you. But anyway, let's go ahead and unbox the regular Nothing Phone 3A. But first, a word from our sponsor, Nobody. So I've been around the block a couple times when it comes to Nothing products. This is the Nothing Phone 1, and then this is the Nothing Phone 2 in both colors. So I'm pretty familiar with the Nothing brand. This isn't the first time I'm getting into it. But yeah, let me go ahead and unbox this. We got to give credit where credit is due. This was made in China. So Nothing is trying to be a little clever when it comes to this opening tab, but little do they know I always unbox with a kitchen knife. So I'm just going to go ahead and still cut that seal open. See how that just kind of just took it off? Anyway, let me also slide these devices out the way. I do like the design of the box. It's like a silhouette of what you're about to get. And when you open the box, you get this little message here. I'm just going to read it real quick. Welcome to Nothing. Well, isn't this exciting? Moments like this are why we're here. That anticipation to get started, to unlock something new. Thank you for being part of our world. Here, your voice can be heard and your creativity celebrated. Use hashtag with Nothing on Instagram and X for a chance to be featured, or help build the future by joining nothing.community. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this. What the heck is wrong with my finger? Personally, I think the design of the Nothing Phone 3A is better than the 3A Pro just because it's a bit more sleek and it's not as, I would say, crazy on the back compared to, you know, the Nothing Phone 2A or the 3A Pro. It's just more subtle, which is something that I would actually want. One thing we always do on this channel is do a nice smell test. And it smells like, believe it or not, nothing. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my SIM card in immediately because that's what we do on this channel. We don't just talk about the device, we actually use them. And one thing that I do like about Nothing as well is that they do have dual SIM, which I think is kind of taken for granted here in the States. Usually we're only limited to one physical SIM or none at all, thanks to Apple. But let me go ahead and slide this SIM in. So if you aren't familiar with Nothing, they're pretty famous for having like their monochromatic theme, and their culture and aura is more about being less on your phone and being more present. And if you need to take photos, that's where they really have a strong suit, while also giving you a very minimal and simple device. So what you see commonly is, you know, like a monochromatic theme, but they still do give you the option to have a traditional regular Android interface. Personally, I like the default one just because, you know, with the colors, it's lots easier for me to navigate and see what's what. And I have something else called self-control. I understand why people get the Nothing phone, but in this first impressions, you can do Nothing, but I'm just going to use the default Android because that's what I'm most familiar with. But if you want this monochromatic stuff, by all means, get a Nothing phone. Going back to the Nothing Phone 3A, this is what we have. As you can see, it's pretty much stock Android. It's very snappy compared to some of the other phones that I've used in the past. But if I just go ahead, scroll here, showing you the glyph interface, right? Just a simple one. When you flip the phone over, right, does the lighting. We only have three LEDs here. Well, three big pieces of LEDs. I'm sure there's smaller pieces that build it up. So just testing out the fingerprint sensor. Once again, my biggest gripe with Nothing and other Android devices that are more in the lower category, although Nothing Phone 2 was a bit pricey, not gonna lie. I'd say it's in that upper mid-range. The fingerprint sensor is just way too low in my opinion. I think you gotta make the fingerprint sensor a little bit more comfortable for your thumb instead of reaching all the way down here. So hopefully they can improve that on the Nothing Phone 3. The bezels, I would say, are a bit more on the thicker side, but to be honest, at this price point, I'm not too worried about that. Going around the device real quick, they do have this essential button, which I'll talk about in a second. You have your lock button, very similar to Pixel or just stock Android, where if you click it, the animation kind of goes that way. And when you click it again, it expands. And then on the right-hand side, very minimal. Once again, we just have the volume rocker up and down. And then on the bottom, we have our speaker, USB-C, SIM tray, dual SIM, and then nothing else on the top. And then once again, got your LED lights on the back. One test that I'm adding in my phone reviews now, or my first unboxings, are just seeing how good my cell service is. I say service, but I'm really just doing a speed test to see how strong of a signal can I pull. And I'm pulling around 460, 450, right? On my flagship devices, I get kind of double that, around 800, 850. But keep in mind, right, this device is $400 a little bit after taxes. And getting 464, honestly, getting anything above 100, I would say is pretty impressive. So seeing 464 down, 85 up, don't think a lot of people should complain. I think the only time this phone is probably going to have a harder time is if you're in a dense population, like let's say you're at a concert or you're just like taking public transport, stuff like that. It's probably going to be a bit harder since the modem doesn't seem as strong as those flagships. But if you're in the house, if you're on Wi-Fi primarily, you should be fine. Wanted to add this in here for your awareness for the US demographic that I'm on T-Mobile, and even though the SIM card does work and I get data and whatnot, T-Mobile did send me a text saying that it's not fully compatible, even though I still get 5G and whatnot. It's showing LTE here. But just be mindful that you're not going to get the full speeds from your carrier provider, but overall your device should work. Just be cognizant of that. This is not from the original video. I actually took this after the unboxing because the display test that I did was pretty much butchered at that point from the camera and the contrast that I did. And what do you know, I'm getting a YouTube ad. But in all seriousness, I just wanted to kind of improve my display tests where I have a test in the complete black and then also in lighter conditions. And if you guys haven't realized already, as you can see with the hole punch on the left hand side, this is coming from the smartphone. And with AMOLED displays, lately in the past over a decade, since the supplies are so plentiful, that's how we're able to get displays this good for that cheap. So nothing is quoting that this goes up to 3000 nits in peak brightness. So pretty impressed with the display. And then moving over to what the display would look like in a lighter conditions. I wouldn't focus too much on the reflection, especially during daytime viewing. I'll probably update this for future display tests. The background's not going to be black. Most of the time when you're looking at something during the day, it's going to have more of a lighter shade to it, unless you're crazy using dark mode 24/7. But once again, I'm completely satisfied with the contrast and colors of the AMOLED display that Nothing is offering here at just shy of $400. So most people are not going to be disappointed. Nothing does talk a lot about cameras, how they want to compete against the best. So let's see if they are capable of competing against the best. So this is the front-facing camera. It's not the portrait mode, it's just a regular photo. I would say I'm pretty satisfied. For $400, I'm really not expecting this to be an amazing camera system. I'm just expecting it to capture it. And if I'm able to see a pretty good photo, I'm satisfied. And I would say this is actually above average in my opinion. Really does capture the light a little bit. I'd say it's a little bit overblown in the whites here, but in terms of my skin tone, it probably should be slightly darker, but I'm completely fine with it. Moving over to the portrait mode, this is where I think there's a little bit of over processing that goes on the Nothing phones in general. As you can see around my hair, it just kind of gets very fuzzy. Even when I zoom out, you can kind of see it up here, how it's a little bit fuzzy, but this is the front-facing camera, so let's go see how the back camera fared. So this is where I start to have problems with Nothing, and this is not coming from a person who is bitter towards Nothing. I'm just being quite critical on this device. I understand that it's $400 in the budget category, but you have to deliver in some aspect, and this, I would say, is just not acceptable. As you guys can see here, this is just a regular portrait mode using the back camera, which I would say are the stronger cameras whenever it comes to using a smartphone. And the background, in terms of its processing, I don't know if it's the camera or just how Nothing does its processing, it has no idea what to do. Myself, compared to the photo I showed earlier with using like the regular photo. So the first thing I want to mention is the skin tones. The skin tone, this is not my skin tone in real life at all. It's definitely brighter. I don't know if it's compensating. But the background, this is not what my background TV looks like. Clearly there is a black edge in the back. You guys can see that in the video right now, and it just completely just eliminated it. If I were to go to this other photo, you can clearly see the black bar, bezel, frame of my TV versus whatever this photo just decided to take. I didn't do anything crazy. I just point, shot, and this is just what it processed. But yeah, this is, I believe, using the 2x lens on the back, or just doing 2x zoom, I should say. And as you can see, I'm pretty happy with this, but in terms of inconsistency, that's just what I don't like about the Nothing phones. This is the ultra wide, and I would say, once again, this is pretty good, but there are times where it's just, like, look at this. This is another photo where the background it's just inconsistent. And I wouldn't be harping on Nothing that much, but if you're making presentations and your marketing really is centered around how good your camera is, you got to be able to back it up. And this in particular is probably one of the best photos that I've taken all night, where this is my proper skin tone. You can see the bezels on the back. You can even see the plastic that's still on my TV. But for some reasons, occasionally, there's just inconsistencies when it comes to taking the photos. And for $400, I don't want to say it's expected, but having some consistency when talking so much about your camera department, how good photos you take, that should be one of the strong suits when it comes to this budget device. Anyway, I've spent enough about the photos. Let's go ahead and hop into the video department. All right, so this is the front-facing camera on the Nothing Phone 3A, not the 3A Pro. The front camera caps out at 1080/30. It doesn't have 4K 30 like some other competitors, but I would say I'm completely satisfied with this, right? 1080 is actually probably more efficient than using 4K if you're just sharing stuff between devices. I will say, in terms of the skin tones, this is not my skin tone at all. It's definitely blowing it out. So we'll see how the back camera fares, but you guys let me know how it looks and sounds. All right, so this is using the back camera on the Nothing Phone 3A. You guys let me know how it looks and sounds. Once again, I'm expecting the camera to do much better compared to the front-facing camera, just because the lenses are bigger, so my skin tone should be more accurate. I'm expecting it to be still a little bit harsh from my studio light, but I'd say that's a pretty decent test in a way, where the camera and the processing should do a pretty good job on what my skin tone should be. And hopefully the frame on my TV is shown as well. I think it's going to be fine. But once again, you guys let me know how it looks and sounds. It should be better than the 1080p camera on the front. I know some people are going to hate me for doing this, but I just want to bring the OnePlus 13R in comparison. I know they aren't the same phone, I should say the same price category, but I really do feel like the Nothing phone and the Nothing brand are for a certain demographic of people. I don't think they make bad phones. I think there are phones that are better given the price point. You really get a Nothing phone for its unique factor and what the company represents as a whole, which I think might be a lot more people than what people might believe. Personally, once again, I'm not really that big on the whole monochromatic stuff. I'm completely fine with having colors as my icons and just having self-control to not be on my phone that much. But regardless, if you want a more minimal phone, or if you want a phone that can be kind of like a conversation starter, Nothing is there for you. And I do like how they still support the devices. This is the Nothing Phone 1, this is the Nothing Phone 1, and I actually have the same OS that just shipped with the Nothing Phone 3A. So Nothing 3.0 is on all Nothing devices, and I'm glad that we have this one here. I'm just kind of scratching my head at the release structure that they have. So really curious about the Nothing Phone 3 whenever that drops, and excited to get the Nothing Phone 3A Pro when that finally gets at my apartment. So anyway, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, found this insightful. Appreciate every single sub, like, and comment, and as always, guys, much love. $400, not bad, but I'd probably just get the 3A Pro.